imagine that you're standing in front of the departure doors at Charlotte, North Carolina International Airport on September 29, 2008. You just turned 27 years old. Now, before you take another step forward, you notice that your heart is beating louder than the planes taking off overhead. Your palms are damp, like you just washed your hands, and your brain, it keeps replaying the same 3 questions over and over again. Can you do this? How are you going to do this? Honey, why are you doing this? This was travel to Bali, Indonesia, halfway across the world in your very first trip outside of the United States. And on top of that, you were going alone. There I was. I had never traveled abroad. But about 12 months before this moment, I read an enchanting story that was set in Bali, Indonesia. And I honestly started daydreaming about the place. Detailed wood carvings, colorful markets, sprawling rice paddies were all cemented in my imagination. And then I got the grand idea that I had to go to see Bali and feel it and experience it for myself. But I had never traveled abroad because I was afraid of rejection and judgment from the people there, because I'm Black, because of my ethnicity, because of my skin tone. I was afraid because I knew what judgment and rejection looked and felt like because I had already experienced them here. In the 8th grade, by a group of cool, popular Black kids who ridiculed me for not being Black enough. Apparently, I talked too proper and I dressed too preppy. And then by a group of students in college who ridiculed me for being too Black in response to cutting off all of my hair and going natural. That means no chemicals. And then by a boss who told me I look like buckwheat, a Black kid actor who portrayed several racial stereotypes in the 1930s. So I couldn't quite get past asking myself, if these are your experiences over here, girl, what in the world do you think your experiences will be over there? Now, I know that not everyone here shares my identity, background, and melanin. And so this might not be the question that immediately greets you as you reach the edge of your comfort zone. Or is it? For me, wrapped in this question was, interestingly, a provocative invitation. One that I was intrigued by, but also made me feel a little insecure about opening it. Because on the one hand, I could go, travel, and risk isolation and judgment and rejection that can come from looking and being different. On the other hand, I could not go, travel, and risk the postponement of personal growth that comes from seeing the world and being in the world differently. Now, there's something else that's interesting about this invitation. Check your pocket. Check your pocket because you've actually received the same invitation. Not necessarily to go to Bali by yourself, but an invitation to take a risk, to cross the boundary of your comfort zone and imagine, what will your experiences be over there? Now, you've actually received multiple invitations. The one that you have right now, it might be for right here, right now, to strike up a conversation with a stranger sitting next to you. Or maybe it's to start something or quit something, that unhealthy habit, your toxic job, the relationship that you know is going nowhere. Or maybe it's to speak up with your unique perspective, as I've often had to do as the only Black person in many professional rooms. You know what your invitation is for. The fact of the matter is, we've all been invited to the same party, and that is the party of possibility. Now, the question is, what are you going to do with your invitation? To take a risk and widen your sphere of possibilities. Are you going to hold it in your hand and side-eye it until all your fear has faded? Are you going to tuck it in your pocket, hoping that ignoring it will somehow make it disappear? Or are you going to throw it away so that you can just go along like you've always been going along? If you're thinking about opening it, and I hope you are, then it's only right that I share with you a few of the hurdles I had to get over in order to get to Bali and other places outside of my comfort zone so that you hopefully can avoid the same ones. I struggled with this invitation to travel for about 12 months because I was hesitant about my physical and psychological safety. And I believed that if I accepted this invitation and actually showed up, that I'd have to be fearless while doing so. Because that's what over 5,000 books on fearlessness that are out there right now, that's what they tell me. That's what the quotes hanging in corporate lobbies, the lyrics to one of my favorite songs, and even the t-shirt that my mom gave me to sleep in. That's what they all advise. Be fearless. It's also what we tell our friend who wants to open up the cupcake business, or our kid who wants to try out for the soccer team, and maybe even our coworker who wants to go for the promotion. We tell them to be fearless. But why? Fearlessness, it sounds sexy. Yes, it's become somewhat of a cultural obsession. Yes, but attaining it, that's a whole other thing. Because I've learned through research and my own experiences and observing other people that we reach fearlessness, number one, through rashness, by being hasty and not giving enough thought and consideration to an action before jumping in. Or, number two, we reach fearlessness through mastery, by repeating an action over and over until we have effectively managed our fear. That is our natural biological response to perceived threats. We've managed it to zero. So if we find that most of our invitations, check your pocket, come to us while we are neither being stupid nor senseis, then the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we going to let this pursuit of fearlessness block us from going to the party of possibility? Never. Instead, we're going to ask courage to accompany us, because courage is a choice to face a risk for a worthy purpose. Thank you, Dan Putman, for your research. We don't have to cleanse ourselves of the fear we feel to take a risk. We have to clarify the purpose we have to take a risk. I stood with one foot firmly planted in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the other hovering over Bali, utterly overwhelmed by the questions swirling in the air. What will your experiences be over there? Now, if you're familiar with the movie Karate Kid, then you know that this is actually the perfect position to go to battle with your fears of rejection and isolation and judgment. But in order for me to engage, I needed a worthy purpose that would make fear sit in the corner and behave, not necessarily go away. I wanted to experience Bali for myself. I wanted to expand myself. I wanted to broaden my perspective about the world and of me being a global citizen. That was me. What about you? What worthy purpose or internally motivated reason compels you to open your invitation to take a risk? Now, even with a worthy purpose, gotta be honest, sometimes it can feel like the wax seal on the back of the envelope just won't peel off, no matter how hard we try, really preventing us from digging into the invitation itself. But it's wax, not cement, people. Who are we trying to fool? I tried to trick myself into believing that I didn't have the strength to push back on my boundaries. But it's not that we have some scarcity of strength, but rather we are scared. We are scared to disrupt. We are avoiding disruption. We are avoiding speaking up and stepping up and poking holes in the status quo because we don't want to make people uncomfortable. We don't want to lose a sense of ease or cooperation or even professional harmony. Even if that harmony is harmful, we are dodging disruption. But if we don't take the risk that we are being called to take that can help us open up the door to growth and possibility, we're not actually dodging disruption. We're not outrunning disruption or outsmarting disruption. We're carrying it internally. As we travel, we are holding space for it in the form of tension and stress and weight and worry. And that was the realization that started the change for me. I wanted to experience Bali. I wanted to gain greater access to myself. And the internal disruption that I felt, it began to overwhelm the external disruption that I might experience or create. And so after an arduous slow dance with fear, I walked through the departure doors at Charlotte, North Carolina International Airport on September 29th, 2008. And 29 hours later, I arrived in Bali. And I explored, I biked, I hiked, I asked questions. I had questions asked of me. Putu specifically wanted to know, are you related to Barack Obama? No, but that'd be nice. And there I was. I got there, not by being fearless, but with fear. Not by dodging disruption, but by inviting it. I got there with courage as my companion, by accepting the invitation to take a risk for a worthy purpose. Now, what about you? Will you open your invitation? Will you ask courage to accompany you to the party of possibility? Will you consider answering the question that both fear and courage are asking you as you reach the edge of your comfort zone, which is, what will your experiences be over there?